So then in this lesson we're going to look at drawing an open mouth. Obviously when the mouth is open you can see the teeth. So you can see on this drawing I've already filled in the lips like we did in the last lesson on the closed mouth to a point where I'm ready now for these darker areas under the teeth to come in to help me balance the colours and tones. The first thing I'm going to do is just take a yellowy tone and go in to prepare all these dark areas. One thing you need to remember about teeth is that very rarely, just like the whites of the eyes, you might make an assumption that they are actually white, but very rarely are they white, proper crystal white. They're never going to need to be left fully the white of the paper. Even on baby teeth, I wouldn't leave them the white of the paper. Like I've said so many times before, the only places I would really leave 100% white of the paper showing are in the highlights, the catch lights on the eyes, and the reflections on the teeth and mouth. So I'm just bringing these same colours I've used in the lips down into the gums. All the time remembering about not having harsh lines. In fact, I'm just going to erase the graphite just a little more. It is really important to get the placing of the teeth accurate when you do your drawing in. Because obviously everybody's smile is unique and it's going to convey a lot of information about the subject. I'm just bringing these lines down. The colour extends quite a way down in between those teeth. Further than you might think at first. If you look really carefully you'll see it on the photograph. Next I'm going to just take my purple and go into these darkest dark areas. Under these front teeth here you can just see the bottom teeth behind, but then there's areas where the bottom teeth aren't visible, and it's these areas I'm just going to go map out now. Taking care to keep these edges, the edge shapes of the bottoms of the teeth. And this is one area actually we've been avoiding harsh lines everywhere else, but the bottom edge of these teeth is one area where you can be quite precise with the lines if you know that it's just dark behind. You don't want fuzzy bottoms on your teeth. You want a nice clean, clear edge. One tip for when you are drawing in the original line drawing for the teeth is to, the same way I probably would do with eyes, reduce the size of the squares in your grid, so add extra squares into your grid just so you're getting it very precise. And if they start to look a bit confusing, turn your paper upside down and draw them in. Your brain will look at them in a different way and you're more likely to get them accurate that way. Just bringing a bit of this purple now into the gums. I'm looking for any highlights there might be in the gums, any reflections. There's not many on here because she's got a lovely full top lip that's casting a shadow over them. And here I would be using again one of my sort of hairy fuzzy lines, even though the point where the lip overlaps the tooth wouldn't be an area where one colour would necessarily blend into the other because the lip doesn't blend into the tooth, but I would still use a bit of a fuzzy line to stop it looking too harsh. The thing is, we're looking at the negative shapes. The actual shape of the tooth can really help. If you get too focused on the shape of the triangles you can misshape the teeth. As I said in the last lesson, the mouth is the second most important bit that communicates information in the face, so even more so when it's an open mouth with teeth, because the mouth will be in an expressive position, so it really is worth taking the time to get it accurate. Now that I've got a dark area appearing here, I can start to see that I need to put some more emphasis on these lips. All the elements in the mouth will work together the same way. As we've been going along doing skin and noses and things, everything starts to pull together, and you begin to see how the face as a whole will come together. And as you increase the working on one area, you'll start to notice things that stand out that aren't quite finished in other areas, and you can just go back and adjust them. And I can just notice there that I've taken a little bit too much of that corner of that tooth off. So before I make this line really darkened, I'm going to alter it. And again, going into these darker edge teeth, back teeth, and just shading over them. And don't be afraid to put things that are in shadow. You can see straight away that they're a lot darker in tone, so just don't be afraid to do it. It helps to bring the front teeth forward so you can see what you're actually doing a lot better. I'm going to switch to a bit of a bluey grey. I don't like having too much brown on the teeth, even in the shady areas, because it can start to make them look really dirty. Whereas on the skin, we avoid greys. If you look at the shadows of this back tooth, there's some reflected colour from the lips as well. Just going to go ahead and really darken out these little triangles now. They're going to be the darkest areas in the whole mouth. I'm just going to putting them in will help us with everything else. So that's defined the shape of the teeth. We're going to actually come on to how we colour in the surface of the tooth now. Erase the graphite on this one. I'll start on this nice big tooth at the front just to demonstrate. I'm going to take just a creamy yellow. I'm working very lightly. Try and bring out this highlight shape. There's one narrow highlight down the side and one round one at the bottom. Sometimes, possibly not when I'm working to this scale, but if I was working smaller, I might use my embossing tool just to put that line in so I didn't accidentally go over it. But I think working on this larger scale or more, I can keep an eye on where it is. And when you start really looking, you'll start to see just subtle changes in colour of the tooth. definitely, apart from the highlight, nothing on there is white. When you're putting the information onto the portrait, you do tend to keep them lighter, perhaps than on the photograph, just to stop it looking dirty, because when you're using colour pencils, the sort of colours that you do need to use tiny bits of grey and tiny bits of brown tones in them to build up the colours. You can't escape using those colours, so you just have to go sparingly. And the important thing is you're trying to make the tooth have a highlight to stand out on it, so you have to make the tooth dark enough to be able to contrast with that highlight, but you don't want to overdo it and make it look coloured or dirty. You need it to look still clean and white, even though you know it's not. It's all a balancing act. So I'm just going to fetch in my slate grey, very, very lightly. I'm just going to zone in on that tiny front highlight, little arch shape. Just going to come in with a tiny bit of brown ochre, but very gently. Like I said, you don't want them to look too brown. Go back in my cream colour. And then start putting some of the reflected colour from the lips. So I've gone and done the same amount of colour on each tooth now. I've just noticed that the lips need some more work, just to darken them down, especially this point where the lip starts to cover the gum. This is a slightly darker yellow now that I'm going to extend this shading on the teeth. The thing you've got to watch about using grey on teeth is that obviously if you're going over yellow and your grey is a bluey tone, you might start building up green colours, and definitely green is not a colour you want to have associated with your teeth at all. So it's preferable even to use the pinks, the pink tones from around the mouth, than it is to, if it starts looking a bit green, try balancing it back up again with a bit of red. I'm just going to take a bit of this dark brown I've been using in the shadows add a little bit of that in as well. See how that feels when I'm use it lightly for the shadows on the teeth. So what we're trying to do now is make those little highlights pop forward and become visible, and then we can stop. It really is, you don't want to be overloading the teeth with colour obviously, because you need them to appear shiny white even though they're not, but you have to put enough in to make them have that wet look so that you know they're part of the mouth. And to make them nice and shiny, clean looking. So that one there is probably as much colour as I would load the one tooth with. I'm just going to go ahead and even them all up so that they're all to that level. Okay, I've got probably as much shading as I want on most of those teeth. Now I'm just going to show you how you can add the lines between them without them looking too separate. So we're not going to put huge big thick lines in between them, but they do still need just a bit more definition. I'm going to use the lip colour, which might not at first seem to be the most obvious thing, but like I said, it's colour that's already in the mouth, so it's not going to look out of place, and you're doing such tiny lines that it just becomes almost an extension of the gum line. We're just doing it very faintly. And very, very sharp pencil. It's a tiny line. I'm making sure the point where the gum sort of holds the tooth in, the point where it disappears between the two teeth, is darkened enough as well. And just where the top lip casts a shadow over the gum, we're going to just darken that off a degree as well. Perhaps take it as a little shadow over the top of the teeth. And if I'm noticing areas now where I've not quite got enough colour to make my contrast for my highlight, I'm just adding it in as I go. But pretty much they all look okay. And as with everything else, the more you carry on, the more you work down and fill in the surrounding tones of the face, and the deeper they get, the more colour they get as well. It's going to start affecting the way you see this, and you may just want to keep going back in and altering the colour slightly and darkening it off a little bit. But I would leave those teeth just the way they are, not put anything else on them for a bit until I was at that point. You can overwork them so easily, and like I said before, they're such an important feature to express and convey the emotion that the subject's expressing, that you just need to be careful how you proceed with it. Just got to be cautious. Add any more colour very, very tiny amounts at a time if you feel it needs it later. So I hope that lesson has helped you not be too afraid to tackle teeth.